3.141592653. Hey Archimedes!
Yeah!
A regular 12-sided polygon instead of the 6. This gets us closer.
Yeah!
The new perimeter is almost right along with the circumference. 24? Or a 48-sided polygon might pass the test. We're so close.
Oh, yes!
But we'll never really line up with the C like this, because the ratio of circumference to diameter is pi in any circle, whether tiny or an arc around the sky, which means to find that curving C, we can start by knowing D, then multiply by approximately 3.141592653. The Babylonians and Egyptians, yeah, they got pretty close, but the Greeks did it best with 3.14. They couldn't imagine regular polygons with infinite sides to define a perfect circle for engineering and design. Hey, oh. Now we use all these computers to infinitely know that pi is so irrational it never really ends. Can't be a quotient from a ratio of integers then. It won't terminate and never misses a beat, and you guessed it, pi never repeats. Because the ratio of circumference to diameter is pi in any circle, whether tiny or an arc around the sky, which means to find that curving C, we can start by knowing D, then multiply by approximately 3.141592653.
What do you think? Oh, no, you don't have to. That's nice. You don't have to. So my goal, so I've got these songs, got this video. My goal is to figure out a way to get students to make learning look and feel like exercise. All right, for the purposes, the reason why is we look at that research. Okay, so this is the movement to this song. Ready? There is a chorus to this song. It is a refrain, a repeated part throughout. We're going to learn the motions that go along with the chorus so we can perform them during the song, making learning look and feel like exercise to ignite the brain. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to watch a short video that covers the content in the chorus. So we'll make sure to transmit that. Here we go.
The ratio of circumference to diameter in any size circle equals the Greek letter pi, which is spelled pi. And the number pi is used in many different calculations in engineering and architecture, and even in flight patterns to find the most efficient arc of flight from point A to point B around the Earth around a circumference of a circle. Now, if we have C over D equals pi, we can multiply both sides by D to isolate the C. If we have the diameter and we want to find the circumference, we can say circumference equals diameter times pi. And therefore we can say circumference equals diameter times 3.141592653, as long as we want to go. Usually we stop at diameter times 3.14 for our approximation.
That is a 1-minute video. It would have taken me 3-4 minutes to present that live in the classroom. We've freed up a few minutes. Let's do something fun with that freed up time. Let's learn the motions that connect this content. All right, we're going to learn motions that connect that information. So follow along with me. Here we go.
Circumference over diameter equals the number pi. This is true for every circle, regardless of the size. The number pi is used in many calculations, including determining arc of flight and orbit in space. Arc is part of the circumference of a circle, and pi can be used to determine the most efficient flight patterns from one point to another. Circumference equals diameter times the number pi. If we know the diameter, then we can multiply it by an approximation of pi, usually 3.14, to get the circumference. The lyrics of the chorus say, "'Cause the ratio of circumference to diameter is pi, in any circle, whether tiny or an arc around the sky," which means to find that curving C, we can start by knowing D, then multiply by approximately 3.141592653. Let's try it with the music. C over D slightly larger than 3, but wait, because the ratio of circumference to diameter is pi, and any circle, whether tiny or an arc around the sky, which means to find that curving C, we can start by knowing D, then multiply by approximately 3.141592653. Let's try it one more time. C over D slightly larger than 3, but wait, because the ratio of circumference to diameter is pi, and any circle, whether tiny or an arc around the sky, which means to find that curving C, we can start by knowing D, then multiply by approximately 3.141592653. That is the chorus.
Let's try with the whole song. The refrain comes up 3 times. Here we go.
Hey Archimedes. Yeah. Take that regular hexagon and put it up. Find the perimeter.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's 6 times the R or 3 diameter stuff. Put it in a circle. Yeah. Its perimeter is not quite circumference but close. There's extra space. Oh yeah. C over D slightly larger than 3, but wait, because the ratio of circumference to diameter is pi, and any circle, whether tiny or an arc around the sky, which means to find that curving C, we can start by knowing D, then multiply by approximately 3.141592653. Hey Archimedes. Yeah. A regular 12-sided polygon instead of the 6. This gets us closer. Yeah. The new perimeter is almost right along with the circumference. 24? Or a 48-sided polygon might pass the test. We're so close. Oh, yes. But we'll never really line up with the C like this, because the ratio of circumference to diameter is pi, and any circle, whether tiny or an arc around the sky, which means to find that curving C, we can start by knowing D, then multiply by approximately 3.141592653. The Babylonians and Egyptians, yeah, they got pretty close, but the Greeks did it best with 3.14. They couldn't imagine regular polygons with infinite sides to define a perfect circle for engineering and design. Hey, hey, oh. Now we use all these computers to infinitely know that pi is so irrational it never really ends. Can't be a quotient from a ratio of integers then. It won't terminate and never misses a beat, and you guessed it, pi never repeats. Because the ratio of circumference to diameter is pi, and any circle, whether tiny or an arc around the sky, which means to find that curving C, we can start by knowing D, then multiply by approximately 3.141592653.
Now that was great. Y'all did a great job. I'm thinking exactly what you're thinking right now. There's no way I would do that in my classroom. That's crazy. But what I would do, and what I would challenge you to think about, what I would do or what I might try, we can get some of the same benefits by taking a walk. Same benefits as the exercise and movement. It is exercise and movement after all. Consider finding ways in your classroom to challenge students, give students critical questions, and have them go take a walk to ignite the brain. In our online classes, I would challenge you to figure out ways to get students to, encourage students to go out and get out from behind their computer for a few minutes to ignite the brain. And just taking a walk can give us some of those same benefits. May I make one last suggestion? Oh, there we go. Hey, it works. Yes, it does. I like it. Oh, I'm done now. Okay. Now, one last suggestion. I would encourage you to at any point you can, challenge students to be the teachers in your classroom. Challenge them to collaborate in order to prepare to communicate information. Best way to know if students have learned what we wanted them to learn is simply to say to them, teach it back to me, let's hear it. And then up the stakes. So I want to do a demonstration of how I teach getting at this goal, challenging my students to teach the information back, using some of this efficiency gained. This is a lecture that I gave semester after semester, year after year, in multiple classes. I repeated the same information over and over. This is on scarcity, opportunity cost, and the production possibilities curve. I was an economics teacher. This took me 50 minutes, 50 minutes, multiple times this semester, every semester, multiple years. Until I filmed it, it's a 12-minute video. It fits with our ratio, doesn't it? Okay, 12-minute video, and then I can play it at the beginning of class. I can send it to students ahead of time. I have a lot of flexibility. I can even challenge my students to do an inquiry lesson in class and then send them a link at the end to make sure they have a good foundation for the classroom material. A lot of flexibility. How I'm going to use it is a little bit different. I'm going to play a short clip of the video. And after I play the short clip, the assignment, I want you to work in your same group. I want you to spend a couple of minutes, and the assignment is teach it back to me. Whatever you got here, teach it back to me. We're going to watch maybe a minute or so of this clip just to get a little demonstration. But I want you to teach it back to me in 20 seconds or less. So you're going to have to condense this information to this. You're going to have to figure out how to really get to that point. Let's watch the first clip.
In the immortal words of Mick Jagger, you can't always get what you want. We have unlimited wants, but limited resources. And in an economic system, when we talk about resources, we're talking about land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship, the four factors of production. And because these are limited, it creates a scenario of scarcity, the lack of abundance of resources, which results, because of scarcity, results in us incurring explicit and implicit costs when we produce, and results in every decision we make having some sort of trade-off. For example, if I decide to manufacture this marker, it has explicit costs. Money I have to pay, land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship to create this. But there are also implicit costs, and those are called opportunity costs. I could have, instead of putting my resources toward creating this marker or manufacturing this marker, I could have manufactured 3 pencils. I didn't. That is my implicit cost, giving up that opportunity in order to manufacture this marker. So every decision we make has a series of trade-offs, and there's a
That is a minute 19 seconds. Probably would have taken me 3 or 4 minutes to live lecture in the classroom. We've freed up a few minutes to do something else. My assignment for you, consider that information, work in your group. How would you teach this back to me in 20 seconds or less? Take a few minutes to decide and figure that out. Go. Thank you for your work. I think we're getting down the path. What I've done is I've walked around the classroom, I answered a number of one-on-one questions, I built relationships with students in the couple minutes that I gave you, and I've picked an exemplar group, a representative from an exemplar group to represent that information in their own unique way, and I'm going to film that for posterity. So I have an artifact of your teaching, of this student's teaching. All right, and we're going to film in 3 and 2 and 1.
So economic theory states that there are 2 sets of costs in any business activity or enterprise. There are implicit costs and explicit costs. Our explicit costs, if we were manufacturing, let's say towels, would be land for infrastructure, labor, or wages, and our financial foundation, capital, and entrepreneurship. But then there are implicit costs. What if I wanted to make draperies or sheets? Then I could have made some money there. How much did I lose by making towels?
One of the great things about capturing these student performances are that it's really student data. I can look at misconceptions. I can challenge the students to look at their own presentation skills, their communication skills, and over the course of a semester, they can improve those skills greatly. So let's watch this back and see if this is a good representation of student learning. So I plugged my phone into my computer, I pulled it up as a drive, and dragged the video to my desktop.
So economic theory states that there are 2 sets of costs in any business activity or enterprise. There are implicit costs and explicit costs. Our explicit costs, if we were manufacturing, let's say, towels, would be land for infrastructure, labor, or wages, and our financial foundation, capital, and entrepreneurship. But then there are implicit costs. What if I wanted to make draperies or sheets? Then I could have made some money there. How much did I lose by making towels?
So my goal here is that each lesson I teach results in multiple student versions of the information that is retaught, capturing the student's voice and their work in order to create not only an active learning environment, but also creating, if you think about it, a new type of assessment. If we have students use the tools in their pockets to teach back the information, we can have these authentic artifacts of learning. And we can look at these artifacts to see how we're doing as teachers, and they can use these to improve their communication skills and abilities. So again, I play a chunk of the information, I have students teach it back, we communicate, we can discuss it, another chunk, and this generally takes about the same amount of time to get through my 12-minute video lecture using these interjections as if I just lectured live the whole time. So it's about the same amount of time. So it's very efficient. Can I go back over my 3 suggestions? May I do that? Record your lesson and lecture content. Get students up and moving as much as you can, even in online scenarios. Find ways of doing that. And consider challenging students to teach back the information, to become the teachers both in our in-person classrooms and online. Thank you, the University of the West Indies, Guardian Group, and thank you all for participating. Have a good night.
Thank you, Dr. McCammon, for that insightful, thought-provoking, and I'd venture to say, engaging presentation. I'm sure it has taken us a step further in improving our practices by becoming more student-centered and mindful of the brain and the brain processes with regard to teaching and learning. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted to accommodate any questions that you may have regarding Dr. McCammon's presentation.
I like the suggestion of getting your students moving in order to help them be more involved in the class and so learn better. But I was wondering if that suggestion was meant more for university students or adults, or if it can be applied to secondary school students, which is where I teach. Because my secondary school students would be very happy to move around, walk up and down, jump around in the classroom while I'm teaching, but that's chaos. Then I can't teach. So how can I get them to move in a more constructive manner that would allow learning to happen?
That's a great question. Thank you so much for asking it. I was a high school teacher. I taught economics in high school for a couple of years. And I had my students do this quite a bit. How I went about doing that is scaffolding. Start small and very, very structured. Just like anything else that you're trying new in the classroom. Small increments. Start with brain breaks. Controlled, okay, we're going to stand up, and pulsing is a good example of a brain break. We're going to stand up and we're going to pulse for 1 minute. And then sit and continue with the lesson if that's what you're doing. If that works, move to something a little more complicated and something a little bit bigger. moving in the direction of getting students to demonstrate their learning in a structured, controlled way, or doing something like a structured walk assignment. Just like collaboration in the classroom, and like so many things that we really would like to do, many students aren't used to collaboration. They're not used to moving in the classroom. We have to model for them appropriate ways of doing so. We have to structure the learning environment, and we have to scaffold for them so they can be successful with this. Does that answer your question? Thank you very much for that.
How will this approach work in a low-tech environment?
Describe or define for me what you mean by low-tech environment.
Where you don't have access to, let's say, screen where you can pay back the videos for the class in terms of when you're in class, etc. Where you basically have a chalk and a blackboard.
So if you have chalk and blackboard and that's your technology? Off the top of my head, if you are an instructor in that environment and you have a cell phone, one cell phone, you can start using some of this. You can film some student presentations. They can watch it back on your cell phone in order to engage in some of their communication behaviors in order to improve that. You can certainly have students participate in group work. If you do not have a projector, and if students do not have access to devices or the internet, you're going to be very limited in how you use some of these activities. But that's the thing off the top of my head. You can start with that, but you will not be able to reap a lot of the benefits of the efficient practice that we are discussing today. Thank you for that question.
Hello, good evening.
Hi.
I've tried the flipped classroom, the flipped approach in my classroom. And one of the things that I struggled with is getting the students to look at the videos before class. So I would send them the videos, and they would have a couple days before the class to look at it before we start the activities in class. And I know you said earlier in the lecture that you can do it before class or you can do it at the start of class. So in your experience, which one have you found more effective, and what strategies have you used to sort of encourage the students to participate?
Thank you. That's a great question. It's very, very important. Having worked with many different kinds of teachers in this teaching methodology from many different kinds of institutions and even different countries, what we have realized is that writ large, overall, if teachers send out the videos ahead of time and ask students to watch those ahead of time, a couple of things happen. It creates a significant assessment requirement at the beginning of a class. I ask you to watch a video before you walk in here. You walk in, I have no idea who's seen it. Not only that, I have no idea who's watched it. I have no idea what environment you watched it in. That requires me to give you, it requires most instructors, or it leads most instructors to create some sort of assessment. Maybe even a high stakes assessment, saying you're going to have a quiz at the beginning of the class period on this content to try to encourage you to interact with the material. This ends up being punitive for students who may not have the capabilities to watch it on their own, which is not usually what we want to do. The students at most risk in our classrooms will be punished by these assessments. So what I'm getting at is one of the reasons why I use the videos like I did in this classroom. This is a classroom. I taught for 55 minutes tonight. I taught this class. One of the reasons why I showed the videos like I did is because if I was to send those out to you beforehand and ask you to watch them ahead of time, many of you would not have. And the trade-off is, if I send it ahead of time, I've got to do some assessment to help encourage students to watch it. If I watch it at the beginning of class, the videos can be so concise that I can just show the video in class and it would take about the same time as doing the assessment every day. So it's really, it's a trade-off. It's a choice. Either try to force them to watch it outside of the classroom and do assessment, or simply allocate that same amount of class time and figure out ways of using it in the classroom. It's across the board. I've seen people use it before class very successfully. They build that understanding with their students, they have that relationship with their students, and it works brilliantly. I've known many teachers who use it in the classroom brilliantly, very successful. I've known teachers who focus on inquiry, where they have students struggle and challenge and think through something and then send it to them afterwards, brilliantly. So it's just a matter of what you're comfortable with and what you can structure for the learning in your classroom. I will say this, that we've seen